Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Willow Creek, which is one of the base game worlds, and I'm going to be building a successful mums, or successful single mums, family home. I'm not even going to lie to you, I just had to do that intro 3 separate times because I kept on stumbling when I was saying the word successful. No idea why, but basically this week we're going to be building a house for a really rich mum who lives here with her daughter and her dad. Now the house itself ends up having 4 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, and it's built on a 30 by 20 lot. I'm so excited to share this video because this is kind of like a continuation from last week's video. Now what I mean by that, it's not a continuation like last week I built part 1 and then this week I'm building part 2. It's more so to do with like storylines and stuff. So in case you missed it, last week I built an Italian house or Italian vineyard in the world of Tartosa, and I basically wanted it to look like the Sims that live there for a living. They make wine, you know, they've got a cellar in their basement, they can, you know, stomp on grapes and stuff. There was also horses, and I basically based the storyline for the Sims that were going to live in that house off one of my favourite films when I was growing up, which was The Parent Trap. And I basically imagined that a single dad would live in that house with one daughter and then also a housekeeper, but his daughter isn't aware that she's actually a twin. Now that is pretty much the plot for the film The Parent Trap, which by the way, you didn't have to have like seen the film The Parent Trap to know what I'm talking about. It was just very much this storyline was inspired by this film. And also I feel like I should mention, by no means you don't have to go and watch last week's video in case you did catch it to watch this video and just make it make sense. It is just, yeah, like I said, just a continuation within the storylines rather than the actual building itself. It just, they nicely mesh together, if that makes any sense. But if you haven't seen last week's video, by the way, I will put a card on the screen and then I'll also link it in the end card in case you want to go and give that a watch. But yeah, I basically built this house for a single dad and his daughter who has absolutely no idea that she's actually a twin, and I was so in love with the storyline, and I was saying in last week's video how excited I was just to build like the second part in this little like family tree series. And so that is basically what I did this week. I built the mum's house who lives with the other twin, who again, this twin also has absolutely no idea that she's actually a twin, and yeah, this is how it turned out. So I really hope you guys like it. But getting on and talking a little bit more about the build. So as you can see, pretty much the whole main structure of the build has already come together. I've already done all the walls, the roofing, already done the wallpapering, the window placement. Currently going around and faffing about with the chimney. But I do want to mention that I was looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest when I was building this. I'll find the picture and I'll pop it up on the screen now. I just felt like this house that I found on Pinterest would just be the perfect house to build in this particular neighbourhood of Willow Creek, because something that I'm trying to do for my save file is I'm trying to make these different neighbourhoods feel a little bit more wealthier than others. Like I want there to be some more obviously like more wealthy Sims living in some different areas of my save in all the different worlds, and this particular neighbourhood that I'm building in Willow Creek just so happens to be one of the more expensive areas, if you want to put it that way, in my save. And so when I found this house on Pinterest, I just felt like it would mesh in so perfectly here. Now I'm not too familiar with the neighbourhood's name, and I'm not going to lie to you, I don't think I've ever properly learned this particular neighbourhood's name because I've always just referred to it in my head as the Goth neighbourhood. And even nowadays I'll go and I'll try and learn all the different base game worlds, different districts names, and I still just forget them, and I just always refer to them as whatever town is live in that neighbourhood. So for example, you know where Bob and Eliza Pancakes live? Couldn't tell you their neighbourhood name. I just call it Bob and Eliza's neighbourhood, or like the Pancakes neighbourhood, because I feel like if you've got an idea of them Sims, you'll know where I'm talking about. But yeah, when you go into a brand new save file, I'm building in the Goth household's neighbourhood, and it just so happens that I'm building on the Goth household's original lot. Now, for my save file, I've decided to, I don't want to say kick them out because that sounds mean, but I've decided to boot them out. They're still going to be in my save file, don't worry, but I've just had some plans in my head for what I want to do for them in my save for a little while, and yeah, they're just not going to be living in this neighbourhood or on this lot. I'm going to have them elsewhere in my save, but I just felt like this was the perfect lot to build this single rich mum's house in, and it just, the house that I found on Pinterest, just, it tied it all together really nicely. Now, if you ever have seen the film The Parent Trap, you're probably familiar of what the mum's house looks like in that film, and if you haven't, she lives in this really big, beautiful London townhouse, which It's probably very expensive. I wouldn't even want to think about how much money that would be if that was to ever pop up on Rightmove. Easily within the millions. It's absolutely colossal, but it's beautiful. But I mean, you can probably see already that exterior wise, I don't really have any similarities to the house that's in the film, but it was more so on the interior that I tried to have some sort of like connections and try and make it seem somewhat similar. So on the interior of this house, I tried to decorate it to be kind of like a classic old English that's got a lot of money kind of interior, if you get what I mean. Like there's a lot of like dark wooden floors, but then there's also a lot of traditional looking furniture. We have like leather, like Chesterfield sofas. We have loads of different like grandfather clocks. The kitchen is like black and white and it's got this really fancy like oven stove top area. It's absolutely just so wealthy looking to me anyway. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. But you know, I didn't try and follow how her house in the film looks on the exterior. It was more so like on the interior I tried to follow it along. I did also try and make it so she has somewhat of a similar-ish kind of bedroom to the one in the film, which we don't really see it too much of her bedroom in the film as such, but we do see like her wardrobe area, which in the film she has this really big I say big, it's big for an English house anyway, a big walk-in wardrobe, because in England we don't really seem to have like closets, because I find that in America it's quite common to have like a closet situation, and some people will like take off their doors and then put like their bed in closets. Like I've seen so many people do that. In England that's not really a thing. We just have a chest of drawers, or we just have a wardrobe or something like that. We don't really have like walk-in wardrobes. And I remember when I was little and I used to watch The Parent Trap, I used to be so jealous that she had somewhat of like a walk-in wardrobe. I always wanted something like that. But in this house I decided that she's got a very big walk-in wardrobe, which is very bougie. I use the industrial loft kit archway, you know, the archway which is 4 tiles long, and it's kind of like got these windows that have these like lines within the windows, and then it looks like some doors have been pulled open. I put that in her bedroom leading into a walk-in wardrobe, which has loads of different clothes and shoes and bags. There's even like a little like armchair, just loads of just different wardrobe bits and bobs, if you want to put it that way. Now I do also end up placing down the style influencer fashion board into her walk-in wardrobe as well, which I want to mention. You don't see me do it because I was so focused on trying to make her bedroom so feminine and so elegant, but then also seem kind of like wealthy by placing down so many different like bags and shoes and fancy looking items and just like powder puffs and lipsticks and just all these different things, that when it actually came around to doing the walk-in wardrobe, the one like thing that I wanted to include in there, I forgot, because I was just decorating, I was cluttering up, and then it just completely escaped my mind. And so you don't end up seeing me place down the fashion influencer board, but if you see the screenshots, you'll notice that it is in the walk-in wardrobe. But in terms of the mum's career, I'm still in two mindsets of what I wanted to do, because in the film, the mum is this really successful wedding dress designer, and she's got this studio in London. She makes the most beautiful wedding dresses, and she's so successful at what she does. And in the film, they reference to how it was like a massive dream that she had, and you know, when she finally meets her ex-partner, he mentions like she's done really well for herself and all this kind of stuff. I'm thinking, do I keep her so she's in a style influencer career, or do I make it so in my save file she has like a little retail store somewhere, I'm not sure where, maybe like Windenburg or maybe Magnolia Promenade, one of them worlds I feel like it could potentially fit in, but she could own this wedding dress shop and sell wedding dresses. I do really like the idea of her being able to sit down at a sewing machine and physically make them, but unfortunately that is not a thing that our Sims can do in The Sims 4, which I really wish our Sims could make clothes or like make pottery or something like that. I just love that. I feel like pottery is something that is more likely to happen rather than your Sims being able to make clothes, but I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but I feel like in a previous version of The Sims, whether it be The Sims 2, The Sims 3, I can't remember which one, but I feel like our Sims used to be able to make clothes. Same thing with pottery as well. That's why I just randomly mentioned pottery, because I just feel like in a previous version of The Sims, we used to be able to make clothes, but I'm not sure if I'm just imagining that or if I just had like some weird fever dream about it or something, but I'm pretty sure I remember doing that as a kid. But unfortunately, we don't have that ability in The Sims 4. So I'm just still in two mindsets, whether I should keep the mum in the style influencer career or if I should make her have a wedding dress like bridal store, which I do really like the idea of that, but I'm just not sure where I would fit it in my save file. But I don't know, let me know what you think. Either way, as you can see, I pretty much just finished up the whole exterior of the build. I just quickly did the back garden. I'm absolutely obsessed with the way the back garden looks. I know it is so small and it is actually quite simple, but there was just something about it. I just really like the look of it. I have these windows from the Greenhouse Haven kit kind of going all around one like little bump out in the wall to try and make it seem somewhat of like a conservatory kind of thing. In there I end up placing down like a little desk area, also like a mannequin, a piano and stuff. And yeah, when you walk out like the conservatory doors, there's kind of like this staircase, but I tried to build some half walls around the staircase to make it feel a little bit more like luxury, a little bit more like wealthy looking, if that makes sense. In the actual back garden itself, honestly, there wasn't too much because it was such a small space. There ends up being some garden planters, also ends up being like a little barbecue area, a seating area, and then also a swing set as well. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the inside of the house, and I started off by doing the little entrance hallway, but now you can see that I've moved over and I've started furnishing like the quite big kitchen. So in here I decided to use this flooring which is from the Courtyard Oasis kit, which I'm not gonna lie, it's probably my least used build and buy kit. I just feel like I don't really reach for it as much as some of the other build and buy kits that we've got in this game. But one of my favourite things that we have from this kit is this flooring. It is just so beautiful and it is just so perfect for this kitchen how I imagined it in my head. I wanted this kitchen to feel very classic, very traditional, just very wealthy. Like it looks like if you used to walk into this kitchen you'd be like, yeah, this Sims got a little bit of money, because it's quite big and I tried to make it seem like it was a little bit fancier than just like a regular house kitchen. So in here I placed down some ovens, but I tried to make it look like, you know, nowadays, I say nowadays, it might have been a thing for a while, but I feel like more people have it nowadays, but you know when people have like double ovens, like an oven on top of an oven, I tried to make it seem like this house had that. Now I have done this trick before, but I don't think I've done it in a while. The last time I did it I think was in the Brinton Bay mansion that I built in the world of Brinton Bay, but it was this absolute colossal house, and I basically had the idea that the Sims family that lived there, again, similar idea, I wanted to show that they had a little bit of money, you know, they were doing quite well for themselves. And so I think the last time I did this trick was in that build. But basically what you do is you place down a counter piece and then you place down a separate oven piece, and then if you move objects, a counter on top of another counter, it then looks like a double oven. I do want to mention, and I feel like I should mention, I have fully playtested this whole entire build. I didn't run into a single problem, which is absolutely amazing, because I playtest every single one of my builds like very thoroughly. I get my Sims to sit on every single seat, get them to test every single mirror, you know, go to the toilet in every single bathroom and stuff like that. And yeah, I didn't run into a single problem. I want to note, there's 3 ovens, 2 out of the 3 work. The only one that doesn't work is the one that's floating in the air. But I noticed through gameplay and through just kind of like game testing that if I was to click on the oven in the air, the one that's kind of above the other oven, if I was to be like, alright, bake some cookies or something, my Sim would still make them, but then they'll just put them in the other oven. So basically, no matter what oven you click on, your Sims can still use them. But yeah, I just want to mention that is how you do it, and also it is fully functional and it's just kind of like a little handy trick. I then also placed down a microwave onto the bit as well, because I wanted it to make it look like there was some sort of like built-in microwave, because I feel like that's quite fancy. Also then sized up the fridge ever so slightly. Normally in my builds I size up the fridge anyway, because for some reason the Sims team have got this thing whenever they make a new fridge, they never make it so it fits in flush with the counters that you place it down next to. So sometimes you either have to use move objects and ever so slightly kind of like budge it over, so then it seems like it fits. Or if you have the tool mod, you can size it up and yeah, you can make it fit that way. But this time round, I wanted it to look like some sort of like a bit of like an American fridge, if you get what I mean, like a really big fridge. I imagine that this fridge, when you open it, it's probably got like a separate drinks compartment, you know, them kind of fancy fridges. And so I sized it up by 1.2. Never sized the fridge up by 1.2 before, but if you're wondering, yep, 100% still works. There is also like a little separate stove top, also like a little coffee station in the kitchen as well. But then just off the kitchen, there is this little door which goes into the next room, which is the room that I'm currently going around and furnishing, which is the laundry room. So in here, it's very much, it does what it says on the tin. This is the room that your Sims can come in and they can wash their clothes and, you know, do their laundry. So in here there is 1 washing machine and then 2 dryers. Also end up placing down some sort of like unit on the other side that ends up being a hoover in the corner, which I feel like recently I've forgotten to put hoovers into my Sims builds. But then saying that, I have noticed that Buster Dust is still broken. I don't know if it's broken in your game, but in my game I've noticed that my Buster Dust, my dust from Buster Dust does not work. Like, it's not dusting. There is no dust in my Sims houses ever. And I thought they fixed that, but maybe that's why I haven't been putting them in my builds, because it's not something that's on my mind when I'm building. But there is a Hoover in here if the Sims team ever do decide to make that kit work again. But there is also some like brooms in the back of the door, like a laundry basket. Also placed down some tiny little, almost like seedlings in front of the window. The ones that I've used are from the Greenhouse Haven kit. I just really liked the idea of them being like fresh herbs that your Sims could go and like pluck from the utility room. I was thinking of like basil or maybe like coriander or something like that. That's a small little plant that you'd normally have growing on the inside of your house. You can actually get your Sims to grow basil in the garden, but as I don't want to say as a warning, but as kind of like a pre-precaution, I have already pre-planted some things into the planters outside, only because again with playtesting I want to make sure that everything works. And so I think I end up placing down some lilies and then potentially roses, and I think also an orchid into the garden planters. But I mean, feel free to remove them. I just, yeah, like I said, I always plant stuff in planters just to make sure that they work. But I was personally imagining that, yeah, in the utility room, them little tiny seedlings are like fresh herbs that your Sims can just pop out from the kitchen into the utility room, get some leaves and then put them into the cooking. I just thought that was a really nice idea. But anyway, moving on. As you can see, I've now moved over to the next room, which is the dining room. So in here, I use these base game chairs, which honestly, I was a little bit apprehensive, if that's the right word to use these at first, just because I never use these. I ain't got a clue what kind of like dining room tables they go along with. I never use these in builds, and so I was a little bit worried about how I was going to be able to style them, but I think I ended up managing it to style that room quite nicely. Hopefully you're kind of getting my vision when I was saying that I wanted the interior of this house to be decorated quite old English, kind of traditional, but then also not too like fancy traditional in a way, because them chairs I feel like you could use in a very traditional kind of like fancy over the top setting, but I use them in like a dark brown colour, and then the little cushions are kind of like a grey kind of colour. But then also in that room I used a china cabinet. The one that I've used is from the Horse Ranch expansion pack. Also end up placing down some snowy escape bowls in there. Also end up placing down like a little vase. There ends up being like a little side table in that room, an armchair. There is also some double doors as well, which lead out onto the back garden. But currently I'm just going around and furnishing kind of like this little hallway area, which is an extension off the entrance hallway, but it kind of connects all the rooms together. So in the hallway, it was weird because it had so many different archways leading in all these different directions, and even like a little single door which goes into one of the bedrooms in the house, which I mentioned that it's got 4 bedrooms, but I don't think I mentioned how I decorated the rooms in this house. But if you're curious, I decorated one to be for the mum, one to be for the grandfather of his household, one to be for the kid, the little girl who is a twin but doesn't actually know that she's a twin. But then there is also a butler's room as well, because in the film The Parent Trap, they live with a butler. Pretty sure his name's Martin. I wanted him to be in this house too, and so I decorated like a little butler's room for him. But yeah, that entrance hallway, or like the extension of the entrance hallway, it was quite a big space, and I really didn't know how I was going to decorate it. I ended up placing down this really big square rug, which is from Discover University, and it kind of soaked up a lot of the space because it filled in so much of the empty floor. And it ended up placing down like a mirror in that room, a little side table. But now you can see that I've moved on into the next room, which is the lounge. So in here I use the same wallpaper that I use in the dining room. This wallpaper, I feel like you've got a love or hate relationship with it. I love it. At first I wasn't so in love with it. At first I thought this was quite a bizarre wallpaper to have in The Sims 4, but now throughout the years I just find myself loving it, and now I've just got a newfound love for this wallpaper. I just think it's so leery, but I love it, and I feel like especially for this kind of interior design style that I was going for, a bit like older traditional, it just works really well. But in here I use a base game rug, which never use this rug, but it's actually really pretty. It's got these kind of like different, like almost floral details in the rug. It's very detailed, very beautiful. Comes in so many different swatches, but I decided to use it in kind of like an off-whitey swatch. I then decided to pair it with these Cottage Living sofas. They are kind of like Chesterfield looking. Originally coming into this room, I wasn't sure which sofa I wanted to go for, because initially I was thinking that I was going to use the new leather sofas that we got from the Horse Ranch expansion pack. I don't know if you would have noticed, but in the entrance hallway by the front door, I use the Chesterfield-ish looking Horse Ranch armchairs in kind of like a creamy swatch. And so I was thinking that I could use them sofas in the lounge room. But then when it came around to actually start furnishing this room, I pulled out, I think, 3 different sofas. The one from the Horse Ranch expansion pack, the one from Cottage Living, which is the one that I end up using, and then also a Discover University one. And I feel like them 3 were kind of like the perfect style for this kind of lounge room and how I wanted to decorate it. But yeah, as you can see, I decided to go for the Cottage Living ones. In here as well, I use a fireplace. The fireplace is from Cats and Dogs. It's probably the more like traditional, most fancy looking fireplace, I think anyway, that we've got in The Sims 4. It's kind of got like a built-in mirror. Unfortunately, the mirror doesn't actually work like a mirror in the game, which I really wish they would update this fireplace so your Sims could like practice their acting or, you know, check themselves out or something in that mirror. But unfortunately, it's just purely for decoration. Also ended up placing down like a little TV onto like a little separate chest unit. There is also some bookcases in this room. There is also a few different like paintings in the walls and like baskets in the corner that got all these different kind of like pillows and stuff. I did end up placing down some books in kind of like clumps by both the sofa itself, and then I also tried to merge them underneath the sofa. Now, when I originally came in and I was initially decorating the inside of this house, I was thinking more so about the mum and her storyline, and then also the twin that, you know, doesn't actually know she's a twin, and kind of like their storyline and their backstories. But then I realised that I also had the grandfather, or the granddad. I'm calling him the grandfather because in the film they call him grandfather and not granddad, which I've only ever said granddad myself, but in the film he's called grandfather, so I'm going to call him grandfather here. But I was thinking about him and, you know, like what his personality, what's his kind of individual storyline, and I came to the idea of, well, maybe he's just like a really old school kind of gentleman. I imagine that if you're familiar with, you know, the vintage Glamour Stuff pack, we have this kind of, it's like a nice suit, but then it looks like the Sims are wearing like a dressing gown, but it's still very formally. I imagine he would wear something like that consistently. Probably has a pair of slippers that never come off his feet. I imagine that he loves reading, and so both in the lounge room and then also in his bedroom, I tried to place down books that looks like maybe he has previously, you know, read and just hasn't bothered to put back in the bookcase. I imagine that he also absolutely loves his granddaughter and oftentimes sits in the little conservatory, which I've now moved on to, but he probably plays the piano to her. So in here, I placed down the grand piano in the corner. I then also placed down a bookcase kind of behind it, and then I placed down this little armchair. The armchair that I've used is from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. Now, again, reference in the film, if you've seen it. In the film, the twin that's from the English townhouse, if you want to put it that way, the twin that lives with her mum originally, she has a toy. I'm pretty sure it's called Guppy or something. I can't remember. Please forgive me if that's wrong. But she has some sort of toy in the film. And I remember at one portion in the film, the twin sister looks at this toy that her twin sister has, like the other sister has, and she's like, what is this? And she's like, oh, it's my guppy. And I tried to reference that in this room, and so you might have noticed on the armchair I placed down, it's actually a werewolf toy, but I was thinking it could be something like that in the film, and I placed it down to the armchair, and I just pictured that the grandfather and the granddaughter would sit in the conservatory and the mum would be on the PC, you know, looking up all these different designs and maybe responding to emails and stuff, and yeah, they'd all just sit in this room together. I just thought that was so sweet. But in here, as you can see on the other side, there ends up being a computer desk area, also like a little filing cabinet. I placed down the Cottage Living crochet, or like, you know, like the sewing thing that your Sims can do in the game. I placed down that on top of the filing cabinet because it looks like it's got some sort of like tape measures and loads of different like fashiony kind of like sewing needles and stuff like that. So I placed that down next to the computer desk. Also ends up being a mannequin in that room as well, which you'll notice in the screenshots. I did decide to place down a wedding dress onto that mannequin. I used one which is from the My Wedding Stories game pack. It's kind of like a really elegant off the shoulder, kind of like off-whitish wedding dress, but where I was thinking the mum would either be a wedding dress shop owner or maybe just like a fashion influencer for wedding dresses, I felt like she needed to have a mannequin somewhere in her house, and so yeah, it ends up being in the little conservatory. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on to the next room, which is the butler's room, or in the film, Martin's room. So I'm still debating what I want to do with this room in terms of the butler situation, because in my previous video that I did last week when I built that Italian vineyard, I said that in the household they lived, you know, the single dad, one of the twins, and then they also lived with the housekeeper, like how they have in the film. But in the mum's townhouse in the film, she does have a butler. His name is Martin, but I'm not sure if he actually lives in the house with them or if he's just like a hire service. And so I'm unsure whether I should make Martin an active part of the household, or if I should just make a butler look like Martin and then do it that way. Either way, I'm not sure which route I'm going to go down, but I still wanted him to have a bedroom in the house, and so in there ends up being quite simple. Ends up having like a little single bed, a bookcase, a walk-in wardrobe, and then also a little mirror. And then he also does have his own little ensuite, because I didn't like the idea of whether he be like a housekeeper or just a butler. either way, I didn't like the idea of him having to use the bathrooms that the rest of the family use, and so yeah, he has his own little ensuite. But now moving on, you can see that I've now moved on to the upstairs portion, and I started off by furnishing it kind of like the upstairs hallway. So in this hallway, I tried to again make a reference to the actual film, just because I was having so much fun. Honestly, I was having the absolute time of my life at decorating this house, because I was doing all these small little details, which if you've seen the film, hopefully you'll understand them and hopefully you'll get the reference. But I mean, like I said, if you haven't seen the Parent Trap film, it's really no big deal, it's not an issue, but I feel like you might appreciate it more if you have seen the film. But what I'm referencing is, in one of the hallways in the London townhouse, one of the girls is on this telephone, and she kind of basically gets caught in the act that she's talking to her sister, which she's supposedly not meant to know about, but she's got this like old classic 90s style phone, and I tried to make reference to that in the upstairs hallway. So you would have seen I placed down this little wall decoration? No, this phone decoration that we got from the basement treasures kit. Now originally it's just kind of like an old school looking phone, and it's placed down onto kind of like a rusty lunchbox, which I love the phone decoration. Not a massive fan of the lunchbox item itself though, because I find that whenever I use this clutter piece, I always try and cover up lunchbox, and in the hallway it was no exception. That's exactly what I did. And so basically I placed down 2 debug books. I basically tried to cover up the lunchbox using them. So using move objects, I basically put a big one on the bottom, and then ever so slightly sized down another one, and then kind of like pumped it on top of the other book, and then that way it completely covered the actual lunchbox portion. Then there was kind of like a little almost like handle of the lunchbox poking out, and so then I went into the storage category in game, found one of them little like keepsake boxes, placed that down onto the side table, and then there was still like a tiny little bit showing through, and so I then covered it with some tissue boxes. If you was to walk past it, like if you was a sim and you was to walk past it, I don't think you'd be able to tell that there was originally a lunchbox underneath it. But yeah, it was just like a small little detail that I wanted to add into the hallway space somewhere in this build, because like I said, in the film it's quite a scene, because they basically get caught in the act that they're on the phone to one another. But yeah, I tried to make reference to that. But as you would have seen, I just quickly did one of the bathrooms. Now, with the bathrooms, like I said, there is 4 in total. There is one which you just saw me decorated, which I imagine the mum and the daughter share. The granddad then has his own ensuite, as well as the butler, and then there is also kind of like a little separate bathroom just off a utility room. But in the bathroom, I decided to use the cats and dogs bathtub and then also matching toilet as kind of like a little bit of a set. I then placed down like a little shelving unit onto the bathtub, try and make it feel a little bit more luxury. I placed down like a book and then candles and then some sort of like lotion and stuff onto it. I then placed down a shower in that room, but then I merged in the shower ever so slightly into the wall, because the shower that I've used, I think off memory, it's from the Seasons expansion pack, but I'm not a massive fan of the tile that's originally on the shower swatch that I used. And so a little trick is you can merge it into the wall and it still works 100%. Like your Sims don't even batter an eyelid, like they can still have a shower. But I merged that in, and then there is also the same counters that I used in the kitchen, and then there is also a little toilet as well. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next bedroom, which is the mum's bedroom. I had so much fun decorating this bedroom. I really wanted it to feel as elegant, as feminine, and just as like pretty as I could possible. I know like pretty is not a very good word to describe how I wanted an interior to feel, but I just wanted it to feel very elegant and just really feminine. So in here I decided to use the bed that we got from the Horse Ranch expansion pack, but I decided to use it in this kind of like pinkish but then also yellowy kind of creamy swatch. I just think it is just so beautiful and just the most perfect bed to use in this bedroom. I then decided to pair it with this ottoman, which this is a base game ottoman, never ever use it. I'm more so a little bit skeptical of like the floral print on like the actual cushion itself, but I feel like with the other items that I use in this room, I was able to make this quite traditional looking ottoman look not as traditional, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But yeah, I placed that down on the end of the bed. Then there ends up being like 2 bedside tables, and then over here I'm placing down this little like vanity makeup station, which again is kind of like a slight reference to the Parent Trap film. Now in the film, when one of the twins goes and sees her mum for the first time, and she's meeting her mum for the first time, but her mum doesn't actually know that the twins swapped places, there is one scene where one of the girls who is normally living with her dad is finally shown what her mum's bedroom looks like, and she's got all these beautiful like perfume bottles and all this makeup and just all these really feminine items, which to her, living with her dad is something that she's never really been around, and she's just so fascinated by it. And so in this bedroom, of course, I wanted there to be like a little makeup vanity. One thing that I placed down onto the makeup vanity, which I'm just so happy about, it just made me so happy when I remembered to place it down, is there is a postcard, and it kind of references the other twins' house in the world of Tartosa, because last week when I built that Italian vineyard, I built it so it's going to be like a rustic Tuscan vineyard. You know, you've got loads of grapes there. There's also a horse ranch there as well, so that household has some horses. But there is a postcard in the debug menu, and it's got a horse on it. I placed it down and I tried to merge it in to make it look like the mum has maybe received it, maybe from the dad. Maybe she had like received it years ago but has just never thrown it in the bin. Maybe she never wanted to get rid of it, but she's got this postcard and it's got a horse in it, and it kind of looks like it's been sent from like her previous partner that she's probably still very much in love with. And so yeah, I just thought that was like the nicest idea to place it down onto the makeup vanity. But also on the makeup vanity, I placed down like powder puffs and perfume bottles and makeup bags and lipsticks and just loads of different random bits and bobs like that. But then over here, you can see that I've now moved over into her walk-in wardrobe. So the floor plan worked out so perfectly for this room, because I'm using these walk-in wardrobe pieces, which are kind of like sectional pieces of furniture. We got them from the Dream Home Decorator game pack, but the thing is with them, you kind of like put them all together and they kind of like clip together automatically. But annoyingly enough, when you go half walls up, half walls down, they disappear. But this room just ended up being the absolute perfect placement, because I noticed in testing like this house, when you're playing in half walls up, half wall down mode, you can still see the whole entire wardrobe, which it's just really nice, because sometimes when you place these objects down onto the walls and then you put the walls down, they completely disappear. Like there is absolutely no trace of the wardrobe whatsoever, and it's not until you have to put the walls up that you can actually see that it's meant to be a walk-in wardrobe. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that if you do play with half walls up, half walls down, you can still see this whole entire like built-in walk-in wardrobe situation. But in here I placed down like some shoes into like little cubbies. I placed down some like dresses and skirts and shirts and stuff like hanging off some clothes hangers. I then decided to clutter it up with like different like knickknacks and flowers and chests and just loads of just different random stuff that I feel like you would have in your closet. And I just tried to make it feel as feminine and what I would feel like the character in the film would have in her walk-in wardrobe. Like I mentioned, I do end up placing down the style influencer fashion board into this room as well. I place it down onto the wall on the right hand side, so basically in a second when I swivel the camera around, it ends up being on that board. You won't see me place it down though, like I said, because I put a mirror there and then I pressed stop recording, and then I was like, oh my god, I just forgot the fashion board, and then I end up adding it in, but you'll see it in the screenshots. But yeah, it ends up being in this room. Currently over here, I'm just going around and placing down some shoes onto these like little cubbies, placing down like some sculptures, some flowers. Also ends up being a little armchair in this room as well, kind of like a Chesterfield looking one. But yeah, over here where I placed down this small little wardrobe, which I personally, by the way, I was thinking that this is a jewellery case or like a really fancy like jewellery collection, because I remember once when I was little, I say when I was little, probably about 10 years ago, but I remember once when I was a teenager, I was watching, weirdly enough, a room tour video on YouTube, and I remember there was this one girl, and she had something that looked like that, and inside of it was her jewellery, and it was like how she stored her jewellery, and it's always stuck in my mind. And whenever I use that little like wardrobe, I always think it could, one, either be for infants because it's like the perfect size, or two, it could be like a jewellery case or something. But yeah, I placed that down into that room as well as a little washing basket. But now, as you can see, I've moved over to the next bedroom, which is the little girl's bedroom. So in here, I just knew from the offset that I wanted to use this bed, which is from the High School Years expansion pack. It is just so perfect because this little girl, I imagine it, she has probably been privately educated. She's very formal. She's extremely intelligent. She's a little bit up her own, if you get what I mean. Like she's a little bit, but I just wanted her bedroom to kind of reflect that in some sort of way. And this bed is just so perfect, I think anyway, to kind of get that point across, because it's a kid's bed. But does a kid's bed really have to be this fancy? I just absolutely love it though. And so I placed that down into the middle of the room. Also, it ends up being like a little shelving unit on one side and then also a bedside table on the other side. I then had a little bit of a struggle trying to figure out how I wanted the rest of the room to lay out, because I knew I wanted the bed to be dead set in the middle because it feels a little bit more formal that way. But then I couldn't figure out, okay, well, where do I end up placing the desk? Where do I end up placing down her chest of drawers area? Where do I place down her toys? And I had a bit of a moment trying to figure out like the placement of the items. That is why sometimes when I come into my builds, I'll like pop into a room, I'll place down the bed, and then I'll place down like some furniture pieces next to it, and then swivel around, place down some more furniture pieces, and then sometimes once I've placed down them core furniture items, that's when I start coming in and then clutching them up. But for this bedroom, I was just so excited to decorate it and just try and get the point across that this little girl is quite fancy. She's not so much like a typical kid that you're going to be able to find walking along the streets. I imagine she's always dressed in like the best clothes. She always has her hair done, always got her hair in like a headband, and she wears like the perfect little ballet flats and stuff. And just, I was just so excited to decorate this room. But either way, you can see that over here, I finally settled on the furniture placement. I end up using this desk, which again is from the high school years expansion pack, and it's kind of like in a set to what the bed is. I do end up switching out the swatch of the desk to be kind of like an off-whitish kind of blue swatch, because currently I've got it as all white, but then I was realising that all the different furniture in the room was pretty much all white, and especially the wallpaper that I've used, which, by the way, if you're curious, the wallpaper in this bedroom is from the Paranormal Stuff pack. It's so pretty. It's like these little dainty flowers. I just think it is just so perfect. But I feel like with all the white furniture, it was kind of throwing me off a little bit, and it didn't look as nice as what I pictured in my head. And so, yeah, I decided to switch it out to be, I don't want to say a more like rustic swatch, but the swatch that I've used, it's white and then kind of blue with like these little like details, and like the blue stands out on the details and there's little flowers and stuff. I imagine that maybe the kid and her mum maybe like popped to Paris or something and bought like this antique furniture set, because as it kind of looks antique-y. But yeah, I placed down that desk and then placed down like a laptop onto it. I then decided to clutter it up with loads of different like books and like random little toy sculptures and stuff. Also ended up placing down a friendship making bracelet onto the desk itself, so your Sims can make friendship bracelets off the desk. And then there ends up being a little like chest of drawers unit with a mirror. The one that I've used is from the Cottage Living expansion pack, but I decided to use it in a white and pink swatch. Don't think I've ever used it in the white and pink swatch, but again with the desk, I felt like with it being all white, it was just throwing me off a little bit. And so yeah, I used that. I placed down like a lunchbox on top of it, also merged in like a teddy bear into the bed itself, which, like I said, this house has been play tested. It completely works. It's just an extra little bit of decoration. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next bedroom, which is the last room in this house, and that is the grandfather's room. So in here, I decided to use the bed that we got from the Discover University expansion pack. And one thing that I wanted to point out, because you might have noticed it, but I used it in the same bed cover swatch as what I used the butler's single bed in, because with the Discover University expansion pack, we got this bed in both a double bed form but then also in single bed form. I used it in the single bed form downstairs in the butler's room, but I also used it in kind of like a ready swatch. But once I came round and I was taking the screenshots and I was playtesting, I realised, and I decided to switch out the swatch in the butler's room to be almost like a brownie beigey kind of room, just because I felt like it was a bit weird if the butler and the granddad shared the same bedding. Like, it just didn't make sense to me, so I decided to switch it out. But in here there also ends up being like a little chest of drawers area in front of the windows, ends up being a bookcase, a little rocking chair. It's quite a hefty bedroom. Like, it's actually got quite a lot of space in this room. You can see there's an archway as well on the right hand side that leads into, well, I end up placing down a bookcase in there, but then it also leads round into the bathroom. In his little like ensuite, he has a bathtub and then just a toilet and a sink. I probably could have done a shower and bath combo, but then the shower curtain would have been like covering up the window, and it kind of would have bothered me. So yeah, I decided not to do that. But I'm just currently going around trying to figure out how to fill out the rest of the room. Like I said, it was quite a big space, so I didn't really know how I could fill it out quite nicely. I ended up placing down this little ottoman on one side of the bed. I then merged in this little like book nook tray. It's got a cup of tea and a little book, and I just thought it was the most absolutely perfect decoration for this grandfather, who I imagine loves reading. And so yeah, I ended up placing down this bookcase and then a few books by side of it, and then I think apart from that, that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedbuilding video. Bye guys.